Hello everyone, I hope all has been well. I apologize for the little hiatus. School, work, life, you know how it is. Today I wanted to talk about someone a little closer to my side of the political aisle, Against Domestication, or TA. Against Domestication is a communist who mainly posts on Instagram, although they do have a YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and all that, so hit him up. They're a communist who advocates for an International Workers' Party, the ICT, and falls pretty heavily on the revolutionary side. In this video, I just wanted to go over not too much of the disagreements I may have with them on a broad level, but rather distilling it down to the prescriptive elements and how his ideas manifest in the real world, which, at the end of the day, is what matters the most. All I really want to focus on in this video is the prescriptive elements of Against Domestication's positions and why I believe that they misdirect political power in some possible alternative avenues. Although with the caveat that I know they probably won't agree with me since I consider myself a reformist, just getting that out of the way. One of the main tenets that Against Domestication promotes in his political stance is the idea of working class solidarity, a large focus on mobilizing the working class to effect political change under a common goal. Now, that is a goal that many people share. It's a goal that I share. However, it is a goal with many possible avenues. TA's main prescriptive position seems to be to join an org, which, while I can remember him saying this, I had to scroll for a very long time on Insta to try to find an example of this call to action, but I will say there's a possibility that I honestly might have just glanced over it. Another prescription of his is to organize mutual aid. Again, I remember him saying this, however, I really struggled to scroll through all of the posts to try to find a specific example, at least recently. This leads me to one of my first critiques. You can spit the most based hot takes, substantiate your posts with the best studies, read every single piece of literature, and just have a giant fucking brain. However, when we engage in politics, the end goal is power. Full stop. And you may have the perfect ideas for what to do with that power, not saying Against Domestication does, but if you do not have a path towards that power, you are bottlenecking your ideas from manifesting in the real world. One thing that isn't specific to him, I will grant, I really wish more left content creators had some sort of call to action, plan, helpful links, advice, and more for building local political power. Now, I understand that Ta isn't the biggest fan of reformism or electoralism, however, he could do the same thing with mutual aid and orgs. For example, he could have a link to a website like mutualaidhub.org that he can direct his followers to, either to receive mutual aid, of course, if they need it, or to help out themselves. Just as an example, looking at their map shows mutual aid stations all across the country, a lot of them taking volunteers. Just at the bare minimum, something cemented and advertised, maybe like a featured story or an archived collection, like one he already has about his takes on religion, porn, and the ICT, but perhaps adding something that each and every single person in his community can do to make a change, if they so please. This is just one thing that really bothers me with left content creators in online spaces. There is just so little that their communities can do with the information that the creator puts out in and of itself, with no clear and easy actions promoted that they may take, so these ideas may eventually work themselves into the real world. Which segues into my next critique. I mentioned that Ta is a revolutionary and a supporter of the ICT. I also mentioned that Ta has created a library of sorts. I'm not sure what the correct term for it is on Insta, of his various views on topics, one of them including a passage from the ICT that Ta resonates with. I'll read out what their main prescriptive is from Ta's post. Their place, the working class, will be at the bottom of the social pyramid, if not in its unhealthy underground tunnels, and their only right will be to vote from time to time to acknowledge their perpetuation of their exploitation. To put an end to this, we need a revival of the class struggle everywhere. In turn, this demands a clear vision of a social alternative to this decadent society, whose ultimate way of getting out of its own disaster is to mobilize the base of the pyramid and transform it from a herd of pack animals into meat for slaughter, into a purifying war which, through massive destruction, would create the new conditions for a new cycle of accumulation even more vicious than the previous one. But before I respond to this, I just want to say that I may agree with a portion of this. I do think, of course, as most people on the left do, that the working class's success is contingent on them mobilizing. We just disagree on where they should be mobilized. Now, personally, and I think the evidence agrees with me, I do not think that in a contemporary world of very strong neoliberal states, a violent proletarian revolution would ever succeed. So far at least, there has never been a successful violent revolution in a contemporary liberal democracy, as neoliberalism is one of the most stable systems, which, don't get me wrong, isn't an inherently good thing. Therefore, I fear that many like-minded revolutionaries' ideas manifest themselves in a way that starts and ends online. And if coincidentally manages to slip out of Twitter, only gets to wash up on the wholesome and self-comforting shores of action, excluding mutual aid, of course, such as book clubs, libraries, debates, forums, discussions, and school clubs. While these are all fine and wonderful activities, some of them I participate in myself, they fall under the category of political hobbyism, which is the action of merely spectating politics, merely watching politics happen, without the pursuit of political power yourself. And if I may take a page out of Todd's book and drop a spicy hot take, I will say that, unfortunately, many revolutionaries may have very progressive views, both for social and economic policy. However, in practice, oftentimes end up being one of the most reactionary political groups by way of apathy and an irrational aversion to utilizing political power through local and national reform to achieve meaningful, measurable goals that put you measurably closer, however small that may be, to a better, more equitable society. Now, if I was a revolutionary, for some reason, don't ask me why, and I wanted to achieve my goal, I would still push for reforms. If I was a revolutionary, I would want to live in a liberal society that better allows groups to organize in a meaningful way, and reforms to elections, voting rights, and more would help this. Even if you are a revolutionary, your revolution can still benefit just from advocating for reforms. However, we can't change anything if our action starts and ends online. So let's, just at the very least, provide avenues for like-minded individuals to make changes, however small that may be, to their communities.